They say marriage is work. But they don't tell you what kind of work, how heavy it can be, how silent the load feels when you're the only one carrying it. I used to think love would be enough, that if I just kept showing up, kept doing right by her, that'd be the glue. I was wrong. Love's a quiet thing, and some folks need noise. My name's Jesse. I'm nothing fancy. Grew up in Kentucky, fixed fences and old tractors with my dad, started a lawn care business straight out of high school. Met my wife, Caroline, when she came into town to visit her cousin. She had this laugh that echoed in your chest, like it was trying to find a home in you. She picked me, out of all the guys she could have had. And for a while, that meant everything. We were good in the beginning. Real good. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Cheap dates, cold beer, lots of porch talks under bug-zapping stars. The kind of nights that make you think forever is real. Then something shifted. It wasn't overnight. More like a slow leak in a tire, you don't notice at first, just a slight pull in the steering. Then you realize you're dragging the whole damn car sideways and the rubber's peeling off. She got distant. Her eyes never settled anymore. Not on me, not on the walls of our home. She started staying late after work, said it was for meetings or some new initiative. When I asked questions, she answered just enough to hush me. Her voice got sharp around the edges. Then came the night I'll never forget. I was grilling out back, nothing special, just burgers and corn. I was proud, you know. Trying to make a little moment out of an ordinary day. She came home late, heels clicking, makeup still fresh. She didn't even look at the grill. Just walked straight into the house like I wasn't standing there with a spatula in one hand and a plate in the other. That's when I knew. Not just suspected, knew. I didn't confront her right away. I'm not that kind of guy. I sit with things. Let them stew. But over the next few weeks, it got clearer. Her phone never left her hand. She took long showers, longer than before. She started smiling at text messages she wouldn't let me see. One night, she left her phone on the kitchen table while she ran to the store. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. You ever had your whole world go quiet, like even the walls are holding their breath? That's how it felt reading those messages. The man's name was Caleb. He worked in her office. Said things to her I used to say. Called her beautiful, called her baby. She didn't stop him. I waited on the porch when she got back. She saw the phone in my hand and froze. For a second, her face dropped. Then she put on that cool expression, the one that says you don't have the full story, so don't act like you do. I can explain, she said. But I didn't want her to. I didn't want to hear her try to spin lies into silk. I'm not gonna yell, I told her. But I know. I know everything. She sat down across from me. No tears. No shaking hands. Just her, calm and collected, like this was a normal Thursday evening. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. Didn't mean to. That line always gets me. Like hurt is an accident. Like falling in love with someone else happens the same way you trip on a loose rug. We talked for hours that night. I asked questions I shouldn't have, got answers I wasn't ready for. But I stayed. I stayed because I thought marriage meant trying, even when it's ugly. I told myself I could forgive her. And I did. Or at least I said I did. But forgiveness is a weird thing. You can say the words and still feel the splinters under your skin. I couldn't look at her without seeing him. Without wondering if she was thinking about someone else every time she laughed at my jokes or kissed me goodnight. Worse than that, I started noticing new things. Subtle, slippery things. The way she wore perfume again. The way she lit up when a strange man talked to her at the grocery store. The way her eyes scanned the room, always looking, always searching. She wasn't done. And I was starting to feel like a guest in my own life. I should have fought harder, I guess. For her. For us. For the promises we made. But something inside me cracked. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hate. It was just quiet. A deep, echoing silence where love used to live. That's when I knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't live in a house where I wasn't enough. Where I had to keep pretending everything was okay just to keep the wheels turning. Where her smile wasn't mine anymore. I decided I was going to leave. Not out of revenge. Not to punish her. Just to breathe again. To remember who I was before I started shrinking to fit the space she left for me. I hadn't told her yet. I hadn't packed a thing. But the decision was made. And that was the beginning of the end. You'd think that once a man decides to leave, the hardest part's over. That the moment you make peace with walking away, everything else just falls into place. But that's not how it goes, not when you've spent years folding your life into someone else's, not when your memories are tangled up in the curtains and coffee mugs. After I decided I couldn't stay, I started packing in my head. Mentally sorting through what was mine and what I could leave behind. The shirts she bought me that I never liked but wore anyway. The photo albums we never finished. Her favorite blanket I used on the couch when she was mad and slept alone in our bed. None of it felt like mine anymore. Not really. But I didn't rush it. I went through the motions for a while, woke up next to her, poured our coffee, asked about her day. Just slower. Like I was fading myself out of the picture without her noticing. I stopped reaching for her hand. I stopped waiting for her kiss goodnight. Some nights, I sat in the garage just to have silence that didn't ask anything from me. She started noticing. Of course she did. "You're quiet lately," she said one evening, her eyes half on the TV and half on me. "Just tired," I answered. That became my go-to phrase. Just tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of wondering who she smiled at when I wasn't around. Tired of playing house with a woman who already broke it. But I wasn't cruel to her. I didn't want a war. I wanted a clean break. A quiet one. The thing is, Caroline wasn't exactly sorry in the way I needed. She said the words, "Sure, I'm sorry, it was a mistake, it meant nothing," but it felt like she was sorry for getting caught, not for doing it. And deep down, I think she was proud of herself for being able to lie so well. Proud she could cheat and still convince herself she was a decent person. That's the part that gnawed at me. The cunning. Like a rat looking for the next crack to squeeze through. There was a moment, maybe a week after that night on the porch, when I caught her standing a little too close to a delivery guy. Laughing that way she used to laugh with me. Her hand brushed his forearm when she handed him the pen. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just raw. But my gut knew better. That night, I sat on the back steps smoking a cigarette I found in a drawer. I hadn't smoked in years. Quit for her. She hated the smell. But now, I needed something toxic to feel more real than the fake peace in our house. I started planning. Nothing big. Just steps. Sell the mower. Tell my brother I might need a place to stay. Quiet things. Thoughtful things. I didn't want drama. Just a way out. I watched her through the kitchen window, humming to herself as she made tea. She looked so ordinary. So normal. It almost made me forget. But then she checked her phone, smiled, and I saw it. That same smile she used to give me before I kissed her the first time. That's when I knew for sure, she was still looking. Still hungry for something I didn't have anymore. And maybe never did. Later, when she came to bed, she reached for me. Her hand touched my arm and I flinched without meaning to. She pulled back like I burned her. "You're pushing me away," she whispered. I didn't answer. What could I say? You pushed me away first, but you didn't notice until you felt the cold where my warmth used to be. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a bed could feel so small and so empty at the same time. In the morning, I made a list. Not on paper, just in my head. Things I'll take. My boots. My tools. The leather jacket Dad gave me. The old pickup truck. Peace of mind. Things I'll leave. The wedding photos. The coffee mugs with our initials. Her lies. My silence. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But I also knew something harder: staying would destroy me slowly. I think she sensed it. Women like Caroline have a sixth sense for abandonment. Maybe because they know what it feels like to do the abandoning first. She started being nicer. Cooking my favorite meals. Wearing the perfume I once told her I liked. Laughing at things that weren't funny. But it all felt like bait, like she was trying to lure me back into a version of our life that didn't exist anymore. And the worst part? I wanted it to work. God help me, I wanted to believe in her again. But every time I tried, I remembered the messages. I remembered how easy it was for her to lie. How she looked me in the eye and told me nothing was going on while another man's words were sitting in her pocket. Forgiveness is strange like that. It lets you sit in the same room, but it doesn't always let you look them in the eye. I forgave her. I truly did. But I couldn't forget. And I couldn't stay where I wasn't sure I was loved. So I waited. One more week, I told myself. One more week to breathe her in, memorize the way she chewed her lip when she was nervous, how she tucked her hair behind her ear when she wanted to be right. And then I'd go. Not out of hate. But because I loved myself, too. The thing about leaving is, nobody tells you how long the goodbye starts before you even speak a word. Every morning that week, I left the house a little earlier. Sat in the truck longer before work. Drove out to nowhere on my lunch break just to think. I'd stare at the steering wheel, fingers resting on the leather like it might give me a sign. But there wasn't any thunder from the sky, no billboard telling me I was right or wrong. Just me and the hum of a tired engine, and the quiet that sat heavier with each mile. Back home, things were oddly nice. Too nice. Caroline started making pancakes from scratch again, something she hadn't done since our second anniversary. She wore makeup even when she didn't go anywhere. She laughed louder, cooked more, kept her phone face down on the table. And she touched me. Little touches, soft ones, a hand on my back when I poured coffee, a knee against mine under the table. It might have felt sweet, even hopeful, if I hadn't known what she was trying to bury beneath all that effort. Guilt doesn't always come in tears or apologies. Sometimes, it shows up in kindness, like a thief leaving a flower on your doorstep. I smiled through it. I played the part. Because I needed her calm. I needed time. And because deep down, I wasn't angry anymore, just done. I had 3 bags packed in the attic. I kept them under the old Christmas decorations where she wouldn't look. 1 bag for clothes, 1 for tools and keepsakes, and 1 for everything that didn't fit either category: my birth certificate, my watch, the old mixtape she made for me when we were dating. I didn't know why I was taking it. Maybe to remind myself it was real once. One night, we sat out back after dinner. The air smelled like cut grass and citronella candles, and the sky was burning down in orange streaks. It could have been one of those peaceful summer nights we used to live for. But it wasn't. You ever think about starting over somewhere else? I asked casually, sipping a beer. She tilted her head. What do you mean? Like just dropping everything and going somewhere no one knows your name. She smiled, but her eyes tightened. That sounds like something you'd do. Yeah, I said quietly. Maybe. She turned her gaze back to the sky. "You're scaring me a little." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say that wouldn't hurt her or unravel everything too early. But that was the first time she looked at me like she didn't know what I was thinking, and she didn't like it. That night, she held me tighter in bed. Her fingers looped around my arm like a kid afraid of getting lost. And I let her. Not because I believed in it anymore, but because I didn't know how else to say goodbye. The next morning, I got up before her and sat on the porch alone. A mist had settled over the yard. Dew clung to the grass, and birds chirped like nothing was broken in the world. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching the sun crawl up and over the rooftops. I wondered what she dreamed about. I wondered if it was me, or someone else. There was a part of me that still wanted her to wake up, come outside, and say something real. Something that stripped away the fake smiles and choreographed guilt. Something like, "I don't love you anymore, but I'm afraid to let go." Or even just, "I'm sorry I killed the part of you that believed in us." But she didn't come out. She just kept sleeping, wrapped in the comfort of the home I couldn't feel welcome in anymore. At work that day, I told my boss I might need some time off soon. He raised an eyebrow and asked if everything was okay. I nodded. Lied, basically. Because saying I'm trying to disappear without leaving a hole doesn't really belong in small talk. That night, I almost told her. We were sitting on the couch. She was folding laundry, humming some tune I didn't recognize. I looked at her, really looked at her, her hair pinned back, her hands busy, her face calm like nothing had happened between us. And I nearly said it. "I'm leaving, Caroline. You can have the house, the bed, the fake peace. I just want out." But I didn't. Instead, I said, "We're out of dryer sheets." And she smiled and said, "I'll grab more tomorrow." That's how most marriages die, I think. Not in shouts or slammed doors. But in silence. In small exchanges that mean nothing, until suddenly they mean everything. I wasn't scared of being alone. I was scared of waking up 10 years from now still pretending I could trust her. Scared of watching her flirt with someone new while I sat on the porch aging quietly, invisible. So I circled a date on my calendar. Just a little red dot. No explanation, no words. That would be the day. The day I stopped being a husband in name only. The day I chose myself over a woman who no longer felt like home. And when I looked at her the next time, I didn't see my wife, I saw the stranger she'd become. It rained that morning. A slow, soaking kind of rain that made everything feel heavier than it already was. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to it tapping against the window while Caroline mumbled something in her sleep and rolled over, her arm brushing my back. She didn't wake up. I guess she never heard the storm. That was the day I'd marked. The little red dot on the calendar. The day I had told myself I'd walk out, not in a rage, not with a slammed door or a final argument, but quietly. With calm hands and a steady breath. I already had a place in mind. An old trailer a buddy of mine inherited from his uncle, way out near the lake where no one really went unless they had a boat or a secret. It wasn't much, just a shell of a home with a mattress that smelled faintly of pine and mildew, and a fridge that buzzed louder than the TV. But it was far. It was quiet. And it didn't remind me of her. I'd leave a note, I thought. Something short. Nothing angry, nothing poetic. Just something like, "I tried, but I couldn't forget. I forgive you, but I can't live with the lie between us anymore. I hope you find peace, and maybe even honesty. M." But I didn't write the note that morning. Instead, I sat there in that dim room and looked at her while she slept, and I started to feel the weight of all those years. The good ones. The ones that weren't poisoned yet. Our road trips to the coast. That time we got caught in a thunderstorm in Kentucky and ended up dancing under a gas station awning. Her face when she opened the box with the cheap little ring I bought on a whim. The way she used to say my name like it was the only thing keeping her heart steady. I nearly stayed. I got up, made coffee, sat on the porch like always, and thought about calling my buddy and telling him I changed my mind. Thought about going back in, crawling into bed beside her, wrapping my arms around her waist, and saying something simple like let's try again. But then the screen door creaked open behind me, and there she was, Caroline, hair messy, one hand holding her phone, eyes distracted. She didn't look at me. She was already texting someone. Not smiling. But not hiding it either. "Morning," I said quietly. "Morning," she answered. She kissed the top of my head, like she always did, and sat down beside me. The phone disappeared into her robe pocket, but I'd already seen enough. "Who was that?" I asked, not accusing, just curious. She blinked. "Just Tammy. Asking about dinner next week." I nodded. Tammy didn't text at 6:45 in the morning. And Caroline didn't lie well, not when it mattered. I took a long sip of coffee and stared out at the neighbor's wet lawn. Right then, something inside me, something soft, just snapped. Not loud. Not painful. Just a quiet pop, like a thread coming loose from a sleeve. And I knew I wasn't staying. Not because she was still lying. But because I couldn't keep being the man who had to ask. I stood up and walked back inside. She followed after a minute, asking if I wanted breakfast. I told her no. I said I had errands to run. She nodded, not really listening, already scrolling through her phone again. I went up to the attic and got the bags. Brought them down quietly. I left them by the front door and stared at them for a while. It wasn't just a few bags. It was a life I packed into them. A version of me that had tried to build something real with her. She came downstairs around 9. Looked at the bags and raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" I looked her in the eyes for the first time in a long time. "I'm leaving." Silence. She swallowed. Her jaw shifted. "Is this about?" "No," I cut her off gently. "It's about everything." She stepped forward, searching my face for weakness. "We can fix this, you know. If you just talk to me. We can go to counseling. Or take a trip. Start over. I still love you." I believe she meant it, in her way. But her kind of love hurt me more than it healed. And I wasn't looking to fix something held together by denial. "I love you too," I said, and I meant that. "But I don't trust you anymore. And I don't trust myself to stop wondering who you're texting or what you're hiding. That's no way to live." She reached out to touch my hand. I stepped back. "Please don't make this harder," I whispered. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just stood there, frozen, like she hadn't expected me to actually go through with it. And then I turned around, picked up my bags, and walked out the door. It didn't slam. It didn't creak. It just closed behind me like a page turning. The road out of town was quieter than I remembered it. It had that washed-out look after a good rain, potholes full of murky water, roadside weeds bent and slick, skies still bruised with leftover clouds. I didn't play the radio. Didn't feel like hearing someone else's words when mine were sitting heavy in my throat. It took 2.5 hours to get there, just far enough that it felt like a clean break, but not so far that it felt like I was running scared. I passed 3 gas stations, a field full of rusted tractors, and a sign for boiled peanuts. I didn't stop. The trailer sat right where my buddy said it would, down a rutted dirt path beside Lake Holly, tucked between 2 cypress trees that leaned like tired old men. It wasn't much to look at: tin siding faded to the color of old bones, a sagging porch with one broken step, and windows that hadn't been cleaned in a decade, but it was mine now. At least for a while. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and wood rot, but under that, it smelled like freedom. I dropped my bags near the couch and sat down on it. Springs groaned under my weight. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding since the moment I left. I should have felt relief. Instead, all I felt was tired. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer and watched the moon ripple across the lake. I thought about Caroline. About what she might be doing. Was she crying? Angry? Calling her friends, telling them I overreacted? Maybe she was texting that man again, the one she swore was Tammy. I wondered if she finally invited him over, now that I was gone. I hated that my mind still wandered to her. But that's the trouble with love. It don't just vanish the moment you do. The next morning, I walked around the lake's edge. I found a trail that led through the woods, past a rusted-out canoe, and ended at a little dock half swallowed by reeds. I sat out there for hours, legs dangling, letting the silence fill the empty spaces inside me. There were moments, fleeting ones, where I felt almost okay. Like I'd done the right thing. Like I was healing. But then I'd remember her voice calling my name in the dark, or the way she used to sneak up behind me in the kitchen and wrap her arms around my waist, and the pain would come crawling back under my skin. That night, my phone buzzed. I had turned it off for the first 2 days. I thought maybe she'd call, or maybe she wouldn't. But either way, I needed to face it. It was a text. "You really left. I didn't think you would." I stared at it for a long while before typing back. "Yeah. I had to." A minute passed. "I miss you." I didn't answer right away. I put the phone down and stared into the dark. I heard a frog croak somewhere out by the trees. Heard the wind shuffle through the leaves. It was the kind of quiet you don't get in a house full of half-truths and silences that hang like spiderwebs. Finally, I picked up the phone again. "I miss you too. But I can't come back to who we were." There was no reply that night. And I didn't expect one. I set the phone on the table, turned off the light, and laid back on the old mattress. I listened to the lake lapping against the shore. And somewhere between the creaks of the trailer and the call of some night bird, I drifted off into a sleep that didn't hurt quite as much. Maybe I wasn't healing fast. But I was healing honestly. And that had to count for something. 3 weeks passed at the lake before I saw her again. The days blurred together, slow and heavy, filled with quiet routines. I fixed the trailer's leaky faucet, patched up a soft spot in the floor by the kitchen, and started cooking more than I ever had back home. Bacon in the mornings, beans at night. I'd eat alone out on the porch, watching the lake turn gold in the evening light, and I'd wonder, really wonder, if I could stay like this forever. Then on a Wednesday, sometime around 3 in the afternoon, I heard a car crunching up the gravel path. I looked through the dusty screen door and saw her. Caroline. Standing beside her car, arms folded, sunglasses on, like she wasn't sure if she should be mad or sorry. Maybe both. My heart did that thing it always did when I saw her. Skipped, twisted, ached. It didn't matter what she'd done. That feeling didn't vanish just because it should have. I stepped out on the porch and said the only thing I could. "Didn't expect to see you." "I figured that," she said, taking off her glasses. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying on the drive up. "You didn't leave a note. Just disappeared." "I had to," I said. "You know that." She looked at the ground for a while, then back up at me. "Can I come in?" I paused. Then nodded. "Yeah. Sure." Inside, she moved slow, like she didn't want to step on anything sacred. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands in her lap, eyes scanning the old walls like she was looking for something to hold on to. "It's cozy," she said quietly. "Cozy enough," I answered. There was a silence that hung there too long, and I finally broke it. "Why'd you come?" Caroline looked down at her hands. Because I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every day feels like I'm walking through wet concrete. I didn't think it would feel this bad. I thought I could fix it after you cooled off. But then days passed. Then weeks. And you didn't come back. I nodded, slow. I didn't want to leave forever. I just couldn't keep sitting across the table from someone I couldn't trust. Someone who smiled at me like everything was fine, then turned around and acted like I didn't exist. Her face twisted up then. I didn't mean to act like that. I was lonely too, you know. You stopped holding my hand. You stopped looking at me like I was something beautiful. And you didn't talk to me either, I said, voice harder than I meant it. You found some stranger to fill the space, Caroline. That's not a marriage. That's a damn escape plan. She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead, she slumped, like something inside her finally gave up. I messed up, she whispered. I was weak. And I lost you. I sat down in the chair across from her. My fingers tangled together in my lap. I forgave you, I said. You remember that? She nodded. But the problem wasn't just what happened. It was what kept happening. The way you'd smile at other men like I wasn't standing beside you. The way I felt you drifting, testing me, seeing if I'd break. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean to flirt. I didn't even know I was doing it sometimes. I got scared of how quiet we became. Then you should have talked to me, not played games. She looked away. For a while, neither of us said anything. Just the creak of the trailer and the distant ripple of the lake. Then she whispered, "Are we really done?" I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to grab her, hold her, bury my face in her shoulder and tell her we'd get through it. But I couldn't lie, not to her, not to myself. I think, I said slowly, we already ended a while ago. I just didn't want to admit it. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. What now? I don't know yet. But I know I can't go back to how things were. Not after everything. She stood up then, walked over to the door. Paused. I still love you, she said. I still love you too, I answered. But that ain't always enough. She left without another word. I sat there long after the sound of her car faded into the trees, the room suddenly feeling emptier than it ever had before. I'd done the right thing. But somehow, that didn't make it any easier. After she left, the quiet returned, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. It wasn't peaceful. Not yet. It was the kind of silence that settled on your shoulders like damp wool. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Full of ghosts. I sat on the edge of the porch for a long time that night, sipping cold coffee, watching dragonflies skim the lake, trying to sort out what I felt. Part of me kept replaying what she said, I still love you. That damn sentence echoed in my chest like a sad old song on repeat. But another part of me, a deeper part, kept whispering, you did the right thing. You left before you disappeared completely. I slept lightly that night, tossing and turning on the thin mattress, dreaming of things that made no sense, her face at a train station, her smile fading, me running but not moving. I woke up with the sunrise, drenched in sweat, heart pounding, and I realized I hadn't had a nightmare in years. I got dressed, made myself some eggs, and decided it was time to stop sitting still. That day, I drove into town, a small, run-down place with one diner, one gas station, and a hardware store that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. I needed a part to fix the porch step. And maybe, deep down, I needed to see faces that didn't know me or her or what we'd been through. At the diner, a woman named Lacey served me coffee. She looked to be about my age, with a voice rough like gravel and eyes that looked like they'd seen plenty but still softened when she smiled. She didn't ask questions. Just brought me my eggs and toast and left me be. I appreciated that. I came back the next day. And the day after that. After a week, she finally asked, "You just passing through?" I shook my head, trying to figure out if I want to stay put for a while. She nodded like she understood. "Well, folks around here don't bite much." That made me laugh for the first time in weeks. Back at the trailer, I worked more. Cleaned out the old shed, patched the roof, started a small garden just to give my hands something to do. Every day I checked my phone less. Every night, I thought of her a little less. I wasn't erasing her, I couldn't, but I was making room for something else. Something that felt more like me and less like the broken man I'd become. One evening, about a month since she'd come by, I got a message from her. Just a photo. It was a picture of her sitting on the edge of our old bed, looking straight at the camera. No makeup. No fake smile. Just her. The caption read, "I finally accepted it. I let you go. Thank you for loving me anyway." I stared at it for a long time, tears slipping down without warning. Not from sadness. From release. I typed back, "Thank you for loving me once. I wish you peace." And that was the last time we spoke. In the weeks that followed, I stopped looking back. I started writing in a notebook at night, little bits of thoughts, nothing fancy. Just honest words. Sometimes about her, sometimes about the lake, sometimes just about the quiet and how it was starting to feel like a friend instead of an enemy. Lacey and I talked more. She told me her story, divorced 5 years, 2 grown boys, used to teach 3rd grade before life took a turn. We didn't flirt. We didn't push. Just 2 people with some miles behind them, sitting at the same counter each morning, finding small comfort in routine. It wasn't love. But it was something. And maybe that was enough, for now. I still loved my wife. Maybe a part of me always would. But love doesn't always mean you stay. Sometimes, real love means stepping away before you destroy each other for good. I learned that the hard way. But I learned it. And for the first time in a long while, I could breathe. I never imagined healing would feel so strange. It wasn't like one morning I woke up and everything was fine. No. It was slower than that. More subtle. Like the way summer starts to lean into fall, you don't notice the shift at first, but one day the air feels just a little cooler, and you realize something's changed. That's what it was like for me. I'd been up at the lake for almost 3 months now. The routine had settled in, wake up with the sun, walk down to the dock with coffee in hand, fix something on the trailer, then head into town for breakfast. Lacey always had my coffee ready. We'd chat about simple things, the weather, her boys, old music, and I'd drive back feeling lighter. Sometimes I'd think about my old life, not with bitterness, but like someone remembering a dream they'd once had. Bits and pieces would float through my mind, her laughter on Sunday mornings, the way she'd hum to herself while folding laundry, the way she used to look at me before it all started to rot from the inside. Those moments still had a weight to them. But I'd stopped letting them crush me. One morning, I was walking along the edge of the lake, and I saw a couple, probably in their late 20s, laughing as they tried to get a little rowboat out onto the water. She was clumsy, kept stumbling over the oar, and he was clearly amused but patient. He helped her in, and they drifted off, the boat wobbly but moving. I stood there and smiled. And then I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I realized something, I wanted that again. Not her, not my ex-wife. But something like that. Something new. Something honest. I didn't need fireworks or drama. I just wanted to wake up next to someone who looked at me with kindness. Someone who wouldn't hide things. Someone I didn't have to forgive for tearing me apart. But I wasn't rushing toward it. I was just open to it. For the first time in years. That same week, Lacey invited me to a bonfire behind the diner. Said it was something they did every so often, just a bunch of locals drinking cheap beer, roasting hot dogs, and pretending the world wasn't a mess for a few hours. I almost said no. But something in me, maybe the boy I used to be, whispered, why not? So I went. And it wasn't magical. It wasn't life-changing. It was just nice. Honest. People welcomed me like I'd always been there. Nobody asked about my past. Nobody tried to dig up old wounds. I stood around the fire with a cold drink in my hand, laughing at a story Lacey's cousin told about getting chased by a raccoon, and I realized I hadn't felt that warm in a long time, and it had nothing to do with the fire. Later that night, as folks started to drift off, Lacey walked me to my truck. She didn't say much, just stood there with her hands in the pockets of her hoodie, looking up at the stars. Then she said, "You ever think about what's next?" I looked at her, and for the first time, I answered truthfully. "Yeah," I said. "But I'm not in a hurry to find out. I'm just glad I don't feel stuck anymore." She smiled, and I could see something gentle behind it. That's a good place to start. As I drove home, windows down, music low, I realized something else. I hadn't checked my phone in days. Not once to scroll through old photos. Not once to wonder what she was doing, who she was with, if she'd moved on. I had moved on. Quietly. Slowly. The right way. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Just by choosing myself. And that was the first time in a long time I felt like a whole man again, not half of something broken, not the shell of a betrayed husband. Just me. An ordinary boy who finally understood that love, no matter how deep, can't fix what someone else is willing to destroy. You can forgive. But you don't have to stay. It was late October when I finally packed the last of my things from the trailer. The air had that crisp edge to it, the kind that lets you know winter isn't far behind. The trees had mostly shed their leaves, and the lake was still and quiet, like it was holding its breath. I stood on the porch with a box in my hands and took one last look at the place that had become my shelter. This old trailer, this quiet patch of woods, it had given me space to fall apart, and more importantly, it gave me the silence to figure out how to piece myself back together. I hadn't told many folks I was leaving. Just Lacey. When I told her a week ago over coffee, she didn't try to talk me out of it. She just nodded like she'd known it was coming. Maybe she had. She always seemed to understand more than I said out loud. "You think you'll come back?" she asked. "I think I'll carry this place with me," I told her. "But no. I think I need a clean page." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand once. No drama. No long goodbye. I appreciated that more than I could say. Truth is, I didn't know where I was headed next. I had some money saved, a beat-up truck, and a heart that was finally quiet. That was enough. For the first time in years, the idea of not knowing didn't scare me. It felt like freedom. I didn't need a map. I just needed distance, from the past, from the house we shared, from the version of myself that stayed too long, hoping love alone could fix what had already rotted. I'd forgiven her. That much was true. And maybe, in some complicated way, she had loved me. But her love came with shadows, with secrets, with smiles that weren't meant for me. I'd spent too long convincing myself that if I was just patient enough, kind enough, loyal enough, it would all come back around. But I learned something up here, something that came slowly and quietly, like a soft rain. Some people love you in the way that suits them, not in the way you deserve. And that's not your fault. That was the kind of lesson I had to bleed for. As I locked the door one last time and tossed the keys into the tall grass, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I had all the answers, but because I finally stopped asking the wrong questions. I wasn't wondering why she did it anymore. I wasn't torturing myself with what-ifs and what could-have-beens. I had done what I could. I had forgiven what could be forgiven. But I couldn't live in a house built on eggshells and apologies anymore. So I left. Not in anger. Not in bitterness. I left like a man finally waking up from a long, painful sleep. The highway stretched out ahead of me, glowing soft and orange under the late afternoon sun. I rolled down the windows, let the cold wind hit my face, and turned the radio up loud. Somewhere out there, she was probably figuring herself out too. And I wished her well. But this part of the story? It was mine now. I was no longer the boy who stayed. I was the man who left because staying meant losing himself completely. And out on that long road, with nothing but sky and song around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace.